The Baltimore Ravens saw mixed results from their joint training camp practice with the Indianapolis Colts. We talk about that, key players who stepped up, and so much more coming up next on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day, your first listen each and every single day, free and available for you on all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and in audio form where you can follow along and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. 5 days a week here on Locked On Ravens, Monday through Friday, bringing you that daily Ravens coverage. We also go live after every single Ravens game, every single piece of Ravens big news, as well as we have the Ravens Squad Show live Mondays and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Be sure to tell a friend, tell a family member that if they want daily Ravens coverage, to tap in with us here at Locked On Ravens. And thanks out there to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners, and if you're somewhere in the middle there, thank you as well. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Speaking of the Ravens Squad Show, one of the members, former Ravens receiver, Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail, is with us today to break down everything relating to the Ravens joint practice with the Colts on Tuesday. And Q obviously also missile training. That's Q's thing. You see the shirt, you see the background if you're watching in video form, and get to hear a little bit about that at the end of the show as well. But Q, joint practices, we talked about it on the Squad Show yesterday, and you graciously informed me of your joint practice experiences back when you played. The Ravens only have one day of them. You were talking about how you had a week of these things against other teams. There was some chippiness. There were some guys that stepped up. There were some good moments and bad moments for the Ravens. What were your general takeaways from being out there at Owings Mills on Tuesday?
I think if I were to grade the performance for a team that we say is a now ready team, a team that is looking forward to the high expectations, if doing a joint practice gives you a tick up in competition, I would give it a C. We had some really good and we had some really mid-level, type of performances. And nothing necessarily alarming, but I think if you're a veteran and maybe you're saving yourself, if you're a young player, you sure need to make a better impression. And I think overall, this was not as spirited as I would have loved it to have been.
I think for the Ravens, that really felt like the takeaway. And I talked about this on the instant reaction that I did yesterday, just diving into the initial takes and takeaways that people who were there talked about. Felt like it was a mixed results type of practice, a mixed bag for the Ravens. Like you said, saw some good, saw some bad. I think everybody, Q, though, wants to know about the fight with Nate Wiggins. That's the huge storyline. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's asking, where's the video? Where's the video? I'll tell you something. I don't think there's a video. I don't think there's a video. But we got the reports. It was on special teams. Ravens player, I guess, shoved the Colts player a little late. The Colts player did not like that and kind of retaliated back. And then Nate Wiggins ran onto the field and apparently was throwing some uppercuts, like just haymakers out there. Wiggins was booted out of practice, along with, I think, Goodson from the Colts was also booted out of practice. So it wasn't just Nate Wiggins. I think that was a new development that John Harbaugh revealed. What'd you kind of see there? Could you even see anything? Because there was a huge scrum. Apparently, it was at the bottom of the pile. I mean, did you have a good angle of it, or what was kind of going on there? Because I'm sure it was a flurry of stuff that went on in a pretty short amount of time.
Well, it was interesting because from my vantage point, I was in the far end zone and they were doing their special teams play. So at gunner, you have, in this particular case, the Ravens going down to cover the kick, and the punt return is through the Colts. Well, with the punt return, it was hilarious because gunners and, of course, the guys blocking the gunner on the outside, like that position is a no-win proposition. You got two guys on one. You're getting bludgeoned to death all the way down the field and not a lot of room to work with. In a game, it's just a tad bit cleaner. But in these practices, like joint practice, I'm trying to make the team. I'm going to give you a little extra. Sure, they might be coaching me up referee-wise, but those officials, you're kind of like, there's no fine that's going to happen per se. There's no eye in the sky that's like taking it to the league office to personal foul or whatever. So technically, it's all hands on deck. You better be ready for a joint practice like chippiness when it comes to special teams and in particular the Gunners. So I know something had to lead up to it. That's the biggest takeaway. And so like when you see how he went down the field, dude catches the ball, pushes our guy, Nate takes exception to it and like just makes a beeline over to him. And boom, like just hits him hard, kind of bodied him. Well, all of a sudden, that's where I ain't seen nothing. Because from that point forward, you just see the horde of brothers just going down towards the end zone. And it was, 90-man roster versus 90-man roster. 180 dudes with literally coaches and assistant coaches. And, man, it was WWE, Royal Rumble. It was crazy. But it was fun and funny all at the same time because there's a couple of guys just kind of like, la, 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 just lagging on the outside, If I was one of the security dudes, I'd have ran over to number 8 so fast and shielded him. No, you ain't going down there. Don't even think about it. But yeah, it was both teams. They were running full speed after they saw Nate Wiggins do what he did.
Yeah, it's like in baseball when there's a fight and the bullpen just kind of jogs and is like, do we really want to go over there and be a part of this? But this was like apparently, like you said, everybody just converged on the end zone when that thing happened. And look, he was booted out of practice. Apparently, he dapped up Isaiah Likely in the training room. He went out and watched practice with Isaiah Likely after he was kicked out. And John Harbaugh, talked about it as a learning experience. And it's true. If you throw a punch in a game, you're going to get thrown out. Like that is how it happens. So, the Ravens are playing with an edge. Clearly, Nate Wiggins sticking up for his teammate. Marlon Humphrey tried to do a post-practice interview with Nate Wiggins. Nate Wiggins did not say a word because I think he knew he should not. Kyle Hamilton then said that he was sticking up for his teammate, but you did not get the answer from Nate Wiggins about what happened there. So chippiness was hard to avoid. Pat Ricard talked about that yesterday during the media availability for him. You mentioned it yesterday on the squad show. Like you're hitting guys and arch teammates. At a certain point, you get fed up with going up against your guys every single day. You want to hit somebody else. And that's where that chippiness can boil over like it did on Tuesday. But a little bit more into the results of the practice in general. Seems like for the Ravens, their offense settled into a groove for portions of the practice, but then the Colts defense kind of took the momentum back. I know red zone was one of those where the Ravens had, I think, an end around play to Zay Flowers. Mark Andrews had a touchdown, and I think another play happened, but then the Colts defense really settled in. There were some pass protection issues, apparently, Q. What'd you kind of see from the offense, particularly the offensive line? Because I think a lot of people continue to worry about the state of the offensive line right now, obviously, particularly at the guard spots.
I'm not going to say I'm not worried and put my head in the sand. I, at the same time, feel there's still hope for what needs to be done. I think this is getting to the point where, the offensive line, even some of the backups, they're doing good. They're just not dominating the way you would expect them to with all the game experience they have on the front line. And in a sense, it's like, I feel like it's, well, what are you waiting for? What are we doing here? Are you feeling like you're just going to click a switch and everything's going to turn on? And if so, when you clicking that switch, because we've yet to see it. And so I think bigger picture for me and my vantage point, the way in which the offense was moving up and down the field. So in 7-on-7, there's no offensive line, and there were some plays that were made, and there were some plays that I was like, boy, what was that? There were some Lamar Jackson, that was a nice throw, but there was also a D-hop drop. Or there was a nice throw, stutter go to Bateman, and Bateman runs right underneath it, only for the defender at the last minute to pop it out. There was, on the other side of the field, one-on-ones where the Colt receivers were somewhat being on lockdown, but then there were where if the one, forget what his number was, but Jaire Alexander, if he, thinks that was okay, well, Jamar Chase can run. And Jamar Chase doesn't drop a ball like that. That's going to be a catch against Jamar Chase. Let not DK Metcalf get hot either. So there's some deep balls that were thrown that, man, you better be thankful they dropped them rather than you breaking it up. So there's just things that I think need to be cleaned up and not necessarily press any panic button, but those are some observations of what I saw.
Yeah, you're right. It's no panic button being pressed. There were good plays and bad plays. I do think with the expectations the Ravens have, just with their roster, with where they're expected to go and how they're expected to play, those expectations are sky high, and they're supposed to be a better team than the Colts. And so you look at that and you're like, okay, well, it was a little more even against the team that should be worse than the Ravens. I think that's kind of where the mixed bag comes in, where, the expectations are up here for the Ravens and they might be, a little bit further down for the Colts, but
a lot further down. Like you got Jonathan
right.
Taylor, and then you got Daniel Jones and Richardson, if we even know he's going to play because of his shoulder. Right. You know what I'm saying? We got a bona fide league MVP. We got a Hall of Fame running back. You got a offensive line that saw significant action and did significantly well by 2,000 yards total as far as the running back room. They're coming back. You got receivers that got contract extensions, Pro Bowl worthy. You got other receivers that are ascending. Come on, what are we saying here? The standard is high. The Colts standard is down here, middle of the pack at best.
Right, and so
you played down to the middle of the pack. You didn't play up. Yeah. And that, to me, I'm like, learn from it.
It's tune-ups. It's their first action of the year against another team. So, it's going to be that way. It's not an excuse for some of the bad stuff that happened, but it wasn't ever going to go perfect. I just think that it probably could have gone a little better, but that doesn't mean it didn't go well in other aspects for the Ravens, and that doesn't mean that guys didn't step up. Coming up, we're going to talk a bit about the winners and losers from joint practice, and we honestly might even call this segment the Q segment because we're going to talk about Q's guys coming up. So stay tuned. We got a lot coming your way on Locked On Ravens. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of year. NFL kickoff's almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and Locked On Ravens are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. And one of my favorite features, new guillotine leagues. They just dropped every week. The lowest scoring team is eliminated, and the last one standing wins. Whether you're all in on something new where you like sticking to head-to-head leagues or jumping into public leagues, Yahoo has got you covered. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With this season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you, diving into the Ravens joint practice against the Indianapolis Colts that happened on Tuesday. There were a bunch of guys that did step up for the Ravens despite the mixed bag that we saw or heard about on Tuesday. The tight end room really seemed to be one of those positions, Q. At least it felt like that from everything that was being put out there. Mark Andrews had a touchdown and he was involved, but you know, the man of the hour in that room, it is Charlie Kolar. You know, you tweeted it out. You know, you were making it clear and known that, hey, Charlie's doing some stuff today, and the Ravens posted 3 clips of him against the Colts defense. So with Isaiah likely being down, we don't know if he's going to return week 1. I kind of doubt he will, but I guess there's an outside shot of it. Charlie Kolar is going to have to be relied upon. I mean, what'd you see from the tight end group, Andrews, Kolar, and how do you think that they responded against the Colts defense?
Well, notice how you said Andrews, Kolar, you kind of stopped. Not that I'm biased in any way. Obviously, I'm a Charlie Kolar fan. Clearly, since day one, Mark has been here in the building. I've been a huge, Mark Andrews is valid. Ring of Honor guy, no question about it. At the same time, like from that point downward, it was okay. You saw, you know, some of that wave. You know, I forget the one new dude's name, Coop, I think it was. He just recently signed. Whew, boy, you know, pressure on him to figure out, you know, some formations and snap counts and jumping offside, or formationally illegal procedure. So he wasn't jumping offside, just illegal procedure. Some of the catches, you could make your quarterback look good, but then again, Cooper Rush could have thrown better passes. But then there were some catches that were like, all right, you know, okay, good. Charlie Kolar, my guy, man, he was going down the football field. It was so hilarious. The one play, like he just snatches it over his shoulder and takes off. And I laughed because he probably was like, man, this feels like the Dallas game all over again, or the Cincinnati game last year all over again, where he's like, can I score? Can I score? Can I score? Can I score? So I was really happy to see him make some plays and look poised. Like, okay, you know, I'm built for this. Look really poised. I think that is something that he's really worked hard on this game, period. You know, but to see him go out there and, you know, you don't want to see Charlie having a drop off because of Isaiah not being out there, and you didn't see that at all. You saw Charlie Kolar very focused in.
It's a big deal. And especially like once Isaiah comes back and you kind of have that 3-headed monster at tight end, there are a lot of ways you can utilize those guys together. And Q, I think I'm getting pretty good at this. Mike Green. Mike Green all over the place. You know, at the end of practice, apparently, Q, Mike Green was dominating out there. Now, Mike Green, that's your guy. He's also my guy too, but that's your guy. What did you see from Mike Green? Because during, what was it? Was it 2 minute? Mike Green was going out there and putting on a show.
So Mike Green was showing why he's such a dynamic, bendy type player. So the ability to bend and get around the edge is where, like, again, as I've said before, the guy that I see is Elvis Dumervil, whereas more Terrell Suggs is just, you know, there's speed, but there's some technique, but there's a lot of power. Well, Mike Green is not that stature. Mike Green is the Elvis Dumervil version of this day and age's rush in on the outside, and he just dips it so quickly you can't get him, you know. And I think for him to disrupt the way he was disrupting just spoke volumes. And it was cool because here are the Ravens coming off doing well, and then all of a sudden you get this interception, and you're like, oh my goodness, like what the heck? So the Colts, and rightly so, were amped, like big time. They felt like, hey, and for a second, I kind of was like, wow, is practice over? Like, is that it? So they gave the ball back to their offense, but that's where Mike Green show came up and stepped up, and you just saw where, again, he had the bendies, was able to get around the corner, get around the edge. Man, I'm excited to see how it continually progresses as this preseason unfolds into the regular season.
Really big for Mike Green, especially because, like we said, that clip from the stadium practice on Sunday where you could see him get around the edge, back-to-back plays, he would have had a sack. Like, he is starting to really come into his own, bullying people at the line, showing his power. There's so much to his game, which is really intriguing. Now, we talked a lot, Q, yesterday. Of course, we had Ravens long snapper Nick Moore on the squad show yesterday. Talked a lot of Tyler Loop, a lot of special teams with Nick. Well, Loop continued his strong impression. Loop, there it is what everybody is coining. Apparently, that's better than my nickname I've been throwing out there, but I digress. Tyler Loop went 7 of 7, apparently, hitting from 28, 33, 38, 41, 44, and 55 during joint practice. That was included in his makes. This was his first action against another team, albeit in practice, but could you tell that confidence is not waiting for Tyler Loop? It's carrying over, and you're starting to see him kind of get that consistency to where it needs to be a little bit more?
I think if you see his stadium practice, the way, and obviously Nick Moore even talked about it with the win factor. And when I was sitting up there in the press box, and I've been, good God, countless numbers of Ravens games over the decades. But the one you see, I think it's the Russell Street end. The wind can get really swirly. And I've been down there during different pregame moments where you'll literally see the flag do one thing, but in the lower bowl, it does another thing. And his power of kick, like you can hear it and everything, is just like a good, strong kick. So you fast forward to today and him being outside, kicking so incredibly strong on the far field away from the building. Just carries right on over, goes ahead and does his thing on the field where they had the both teams playing, and they had the field goal units out there and field goal block unit. So I think the big takeaway for me, the Colts don't have a kicker. Oh, my God. Unless he's just so used to kicking indoors, he doesn't really care, and you're in trouble when you got to go outside. Although you got 8, 9 games, I guess, indoors, including the game against, I don't know. Well, no, they're not going to play the Saints. They're not in the same division. But at least you got 8 games indoors. And, the Texans, Houston Texans.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Yeah, okay, you got 9 games. But with that said, like, you get a comparison between your guy and their guy. And their guy, like, missed, like, some that I was like, ew, bruh. Like, you would get booed out of Baltimore. Like, the standards are the standards, like, come on. We got expectations here in Baltimore of making kicks. Hauschka and Billy Cundiff, names are not written in the halls and annals of Raven lore. The point I'm making is homeboy kicked the ball really well. And I think bigger picture-wise, you got to tip your cap to him and think, wow, that's a good thing for him and the way he's been able to play.
Tyler Loop, even if he has some of those rookie mistakes and growing pains, like, well, what did we see from the Ravens last year in that department? It wasn't pretty. So even though the expectation is still there, it's still is sky high. You're going to have to kind of just ride it out with Tyler Loop. Seems like they have all the confidence in the world in him, and they have a type. They love the strong leg kickers, and obviously Randy Brown is one of the best in the business at being able to work with guys, get the best out of them. The special teams group, they know what they're doing. So it's very rare that the Ravens don't hit on kickers, and we'll see how it all unfolds with Tyler Loop. But coming up in the final part of the show, we're going to be diving into a little bit more of some general takeaways from joint practice, as well as Derrick Henry sharing a message Lamar Jackson told to the team about how he is fed up with losing. So be sure to stay tuned. We got a lot coming up on the show. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game. All your friends are getting sunburned at the beach, and it's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. And whether I'm placing the same game parlay or watching a bet ride into the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm a part of the action. The Orioles, it has not been a good year for the Orioles. They sold at the trade deadline. Odds aren't looking too great for them. I mean, World Series wise, if you want to look at that over on FanDuel, they are plus 100,000. It's not good, but hey, if you're feeling spicy about the Orioles, maybe that's something you want to get into over on FanDuel. If you're a FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Back here on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Qadry Ismail still diving into Ravens talk with you here. Ravens wrapped up their joint practice with the Colts on Tuesday. Preseason game against the Colts is tomorrow, which is absolutely unbelievable. We are back, as I keep saying. I can't believe it. But let's get into a couple of the general observations that you saw from joint practice. Obviously, was a mixed bag. We talked about some of the standouts. A couple of other guys that got some attention. Keaton Mitchell apparently had a couple of nice runs. Tez Walker had a couple of nice catches. Those have been two of the standouts from training camp so far. Good to see them being able to continue their strong play. Who were some guys? Maybe you can also talk about those two if they caught your eye. Who were some others that you thought from just a general perspective either popped to you, or maybe guys that popped to you in a bad way? Maybe guys who were on the wrong end of some plays for the Ravens on Tuesday.
Well, yeah, the names that you mentioned, we saw obviously, Keaton Mitchell do his thing. It's funny how you go through a practice and you watch how your guys go up against Derrick Henry. Then another team goes up against D-Hen, and it's like a business decision. And you can just see where guys ain't thudding them up and holding them up. Whereas when the other running backs are in there, it's like, oh, yeah, you're trying to get all bold about it. And that, it always cracks me up. I think when I was watching more of the defense, you saw the talent of another team's receiving core go up against the talent of your DBs. And it was like you win some, you lose some. Clearly it's one-on-one. One-on-one is a scenario where there's no rush, and so it favors the offense because the quarterback can hold the ball. TJ Tampa, don't be tripping. Don't act like just because I said Mike Green's name, I'll forget my boy 2-7. What's up? Let's just be real about this thing. Homeboy trying to try him with a inside route and bang, just get the ball, knock it out of hand, incomplete. Yeah, deep ball, couldn't do it. Come back, we'll give you that catch, but that's for minimal gain. Don't care about you. Like what you doing something. Like what? Say something. So, long story short of it, yes, big picture wise, there's opportunity to get better. And I think that's something that we look at with this Ravens ball club. Here's a guy who, in my mind, I was like extremely impressed by, Roquan Smith. Like, we haven't really said his name an awful lot. And I know there's a lot of young guys around him, so the attention is on them. But for a stud running back, Jonathan Taylor and company, like Roquan, quiet as kept. Like, I felt from what I've seen, he was flying around to the football. Like, looked fast, sideline to sideline. So, big shout out to Roquan as far as his joint practice performance.
How did Lamar look from a general perspective? You talked a little about the general drills on offense, talked about some interceptions. Seemed like there were some good moments and some bad moments. That mixed bag we've been talking about, had a couple of nice balls, a couple of not so nice balls. What was your overall assessment of Lamar on the day?
So I guess it was like that mixed bag, but even in that mixed bag, it was just disappointing. I guess we're just so used to Lamar being just outstanding, and it wasn't just him. Like, I think the stutter go between him and Bateman, like Bateman comes down with that, it changes the whole, portion of practice because now he's hitting a big play. He saw where DeAndre Hopkins coming across the field, and he technically threw him open, meaning that there was a defender in front of him, but he threw it in a way where D-Hop just needed to turn his hips. And I was like, is that a miscommunication, or is that D-Hop just dropping the ball? There was nobody open downfield, so he's like trying to get the ball out quick. I think it was Keaton, or maybe I'm not sure the running back, but he throws it, it's kind of thrown in the dirt. So you're like, all right, maybe it was Justice Hill. I misremember. But it was those kind of like meh that you're like, okay, I guess. But there were other plays where he just was Lamar. He was spectacular and made just some awesome throws. So, yeah, you take that plus the 2 interceptions at the end in the 2-minute drill of practice, and you take those and you're just like, all right, bet. Not going to make a big deal out of it. But at the same time, we also know that you can't take it for granted and use that as motivation to get better for next time.
Yeah, and again, like I think we all give him the benefit of the doubt, considering his resume, right? Like when it comes to the regular season, I think we know what Lamar is going to give this team from an on-field production and that wow ability. And it's him, whether it's him working on stuff or, the Colts maybe just got the better of him on some plays, which clearly did happen. Like Lamar, when it comes to the regular season, I'm not going to overreact one way or the other to training camp, whether it's good or bad. Like obviously it counts when the games count. That to me is where you can take trends away for sure. I'm not saying it's completely meaningless, but for a guy like Lamar Jackson, who the resume backs up his play, in week 1, we can start having those conversations, but that doesn't mean the observations of Lamar are, not there from training camp. Like clearly there is stuff going on and another mixed bag situation for the Ravens and for Lamar on Tuesday. But speaking of Lamar Q, Derrick Henry shared a message on SiriusXM about the message Lamar had to the team, particularly when they first got into training camp. He revealed that essentially he's tired of losing, which surprise to absolutely no one. He said, quote, "It's time. He's just tired of coming up short." And then Derrick Henry mentioned the fact that we're hungry. Lamar essentially said, let's not come out here and BS on all 3 phases. Let's do what we need to do. Can you kind of sense that urgency now that it's been a couple weeks of training camp? You have the joint practice under your belt now if you're the Ravens. Is that urgency apparent to you, or is it something where it's just business as usual for training camp?
You know what? It's not business as usual because I see Lamar, like, for example, after the drop, you saw Lamar like, it was frustration. Lamar was frustrated, like tapping himself on the helmet. Then he went over to D-Hop and discussed what they wanted to have happen. You see that often. It's a good thing. I'm not settling when I make errors and I want to be on the same page with my guys. Kirkwood had I think it was either a deep out or it was a sail route, which are nuanced. But anyway, so it was a deep sideline throw, and Lamar kind of threw him uphill or up the field more, and he kind of flattened it based upon where he felt the coverage was. Lamar could have easily big leagued him. He was sitting there and he was kind of like, making hand gestures, but he walked over to him. This is Kirkwood. This isn't Bate or Flowers. This is Kirkwood, who probably is not going to be active on most game days, if at all. He'll probably be more in the practice squad. But the fact that you see Lamar in that role of like, yo, let's work this thing out, I thought was awesome.
Yeah, there's a difference between like showing somebody up in a moment of mistake and going over and being productive with that. And that's what it is. I think it's productive frustration that Lamar Jackson shows. So, the urgency is there. We know the expectations are there. Joint practice in the books, and we can all look forward to tomorrow when the Ravens and Colts will face off. Q, I appreciate you hopping on. Thank you. Please, before we head out of here, tell people where they can find you, what you're working on, and tell us all about Missile Training and MissileTraining.com.
Yes, sir. It is. It is MissileTraining.com, MissileTraining.com for all your human movement and sports performance training. Doesn't matter if you're a team, individual, if you are in any sport that you're looking to move better and have greater range of motion and durability. That is what we provide. Speed training, boom. That's in my wheelhouse. I'm the Missile. But when you're talking durability, let's discuss and assess how you are moving either correctly or incorrectly and how we can put you on the right protocols towards durability. At the same time, doesn't matter the age of the person. If you are a person that is looking for fitness, we got all your fitness needs. MissileTraining.com. And of course, WJZ is where I'm at on the television side of things with my Purple pregame show and also Purple Playbook. So you can check me out there. And of course, every single week, twice, I should say 3 times, once here on Locked On Ravens with my guy, Kevin Oestreicher. But we also hold it down on the Squad Show as well, where you can check us out. We just talking shop, talking Ravens, talking it with you. Also check us out after games too, where you can hear us break down the performances of the Baltimore Ravens.
Yep, our Thursday post or our Thursday squad show will turn into a post-game squad show, so we'll be live after that. I'll be live a little bit before the squad show on Locked On Ravens, doing a little instant reaction, and then the squad show will kick off after that for our other reaction. So plenty of Ravens content coming your way on Locked On Ravens Q. I appreciate you. All the links to Q's work in the description down below as always, so be sure to check it out and support him. That's all I have for you today on Locked On Ravens. Thanks so much for tuning in. Whether you're a video watcher or an audio listener, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button on the way out in video form. Follow along in audio form, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.